Here we are, we're upon US Open week. Now let's talk about Scottie Scheffler and how and why he's dominating golf and why he's such a big favorite this week and how what Scottie does mentally and physically can really help your game. So let's talk about first the way he reacts. Let's talk about some of the mental things because this is what's more important. If you watch how he reacts to what happens on the golf course, he makes a double. He's number one in recovery. So he makes a double, he makes a birdie on the next hole. He makes a triple, he makes a birdie on the next hole. So that's the sign of somebody that can have a train wreck and get up on the next hole and leave it behind and still be competitive and still believe in themselves and come back with a real positive outcome. So that's what most of you have to try to do. You know, one hole, you have a bad hole, okay, let's get to the next hole. It's like the first hole you've ever played. So that comes back to you're playing one shot at a time. So if he makes a triple on a hole, he goes to the next hole, it's just a new challenge for him. And he clears the mechanism, and he's just as committed on that hole and on those shots. Now, the triple he made, he might be better on the next hole because he made a couple of bad swings. He'll make adjustments so he doesn't do it again. So the number one thing relative to his mental discipline is that he's a one shot at a time guy and he's not too affected by what happens if it's bad or good. So he stays really consistent. That's what we can all be better at. And if you're better at that, you're going to shoot better scores. That's one thing for sure. The other thing relative to who he is mentally, okay, he prepares himself and he's very okay with where he is from a preparation perspective. So when he gets to the golf course, he's done everything he can do to get ready to play. That's what you can do. Now, you're not a tour player, so you can't practice 6 hours a day, but you can get yourself as prepared as you possibly can. Once you do that, then everything else is just kind of a learning experience. You know, every round of golf is an opportunity to learn something about yourself and your game. So it's not just about a score, it's about learning about yourself. That's why this game is so spectacular. You can play it years and years, 80, 90 years old. Bob Toski's still playing, he's 97. So it's a game of a lifetime that's constantly teaching you about yourself. And you're always trying to get better than you were yesterday. So that's what all these guys are doing. So that's the other thing we can learn from him. Now, when it comes to him as far as practice goes, what's the first thing? He had a tournament there where he didn't win. Oh my goodness. So he had one tournament he didn't win, and he went home, and what did he start practicing? He spent a day working on his grip and his posture and his ball position and his setup. And if you watch him when he's practicing, he's very cognizant of making sure that he gets the club exactly where he wants it in his hands. We're talking exact. Not a little, not close, exactly where he wants it. So he gets the club exactly where he wants it. He's got the ball position exactly where he wants it. He's got his posture right where he wants it. And then he starts hitting balls from there. So most of you, if you would really understand grip and get your hands on the club correctly and get them on there every single time the same way, you'd notice a big difference in your game. The same with ball position and aim. I mean, I see people, they go out there and they just kind of grab the club and the ball's here and the ball's there and want hands here, hands all over the place. So you need to figure out what grip, how you're going to put your hands on the club and why, and then you need to do it consistently. The same with ball position and aim. Make sure that you go to the description below and get involved with Malaska Golf for the Summer of Great Golf. We've got an improvement package that we're doing this month. We've got the Rapsodo MLM2 Pro. We've got the Precision Impact. We've got Rotex Motion. We've got putting mirrors. We've got all kinds of things that we're giving away to help you improve your game. Now, these are all things that I believe in. They're all things that I use myself. I wouldn't get behind a product that hasn't benefited me. So make sure you get on, go to the description, get involved in the Summer of Great Golf and this prize package that we're putting out to improve your game. So now we're going to talk about Scottie's swing. And what can you learn or what can you take out of his swing that can help you as a player? And when you watch tour players, I mean, there's always things that we can learn, and there's things that you can copy, there's things that you can't. One thing, when Scottie practices, one of the things he really practices is just hitting solid contact. So when he's hitting balls, his swing duplicates, which is another thing we can all learn from. Even though you see some unique things in his swing, I understand how he does it, how it all fits together, and what times what, why he's able to duplicate. But a perfect swing is a swing that duplicates itself under pressure and you can hit the ball in the center of the face. That's a perfect swing. Perfect isn't necessarily if you draw a picture and it looks like, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. But if it does that and you can't hit the ball solid, it's not a perfect swing. And if it doesn't duplicate under pressure, it also isn't perfect. Why have we had Jack Nicklaus, Scottie Scheffler, all these different players, Lee Trevino, Tom Watson, Hale Irwin, Tiger Woods? Every single one of their swings looks significantly different. Okay, but they've learned to duplicate under pressure and they can put the club face on the back of the ball solid every single time. That's what makes them good. So they practice hitting solid shots and then they build their swings. Now, when you watch Scottie's swing, he does a couple of things that are pretty unique. One, when he takes it away, one of his big things is to make sure the club doesn't get behind him, which, you know, I like that. So he gets the club out here and then he has a real vertical swing and he gets the club a little across the line. Okay, Jack Nicklaus got it across the line. He was a pretty good player. But what Scottie does is when he does that, he has all this arm freedom. So he says all this arm freedom. So he turns, but his arms are really loose and free, which is what all of us could learn from. Because most people are so tight over the ball, they get over it, and their arms are so connected to their bodies that they can't make a free swing. You watch Scottie, and his arms are really free and loose to go. So that's one big thing you can learn from him is to loosen up your shoulders and let your arms, they have to swing freely. So when your body moves, they can react to your body. All right, now, once he takes the club away, then when he hits it, he has a funny, what everybody thinks is a funny action with his feet. So he gets set up and he goes, and he jumps out of the way of it and his feet do something funny. And everybody says, wow, his foot action's terrible. No, his foot action's actually really good. Let's talk about what he does. So he takes the club away, little across the line, and then Scottie has a little more lateral movement than a lot of the guys on tour. He does it because he doesn't have that big wrist hinge and he doesn't create a lot of angle coming down. So he's a lot less angle in his wrists. So to create the angle of approach, he slides forward on it a little bit. That slide also gives him time to take the club from being across the line to get the club back in front of him. All right, now this foot is sliding and going this way. So it goes this way, and then after he hits the ball, the left foot turns out of the way. What can you learn from that? Two things. You ought to hit balls where you stand there and make a swing and have your right foot slide back. 90% of you, that would make you significantly better. Why? I stand on the lesson tee every day watching people go with their right hip. If your right foot goes this way, your right hip can't go out. All right, so that's a really good drill for you to stand there and slide your foot back. Greg Norman played that way. There's a lot of great players. Billy Casper, this right foot slid like this every single time. It kept this out of the way. So for most of you, just practicing that is going to really help. Now let's talk about his follow-through. When he follows through, this foot goes this way, and then this one twists out, so he does this, which I used to do when I was a kid. I'd come into the ball, when I'd hit it, this foot would go this way. So I'd go onto my heel, and my toe would lift. So if you would practice making swings where you push your left hip back far enough that it lifts your left toe, and you're on your heel when you hit it, that would also help you, because that ties into what you did with your backswing. So let's get a little review here. 1, practice the things you have control of. His grip, he's so precise with his grip, his ball position, his setup, that can help every single one of you. Okay? Number 2, when he swings, he's got a free arm swing. He's not trying to keep his arms tied into his body, stay connected, whatever you want to call that. So he's really loose and free with his arm swing. Number three, how his feet work is a product of what keeps him out of the way of his arm swing. He actually has some of the best footwork and dynamic balance in golf. See, your feet aren't static when you play sports. This whole leave your feet flat on the ground, I get why they do it, but as I'm swinging, my feet are moving all over in my shoes. So when you start with golf, you want to start where you're doing things where you're stepping. That makes the game a lot easier, and that's basically what he's doing. I mean, that's not a funny move. So let's review what we've talked about. One, mentally. We can all learn from what he does. You watch him, he has a train wreck, and the next hole he makes birdie. How does he do that? That's something you have to learn. You have to learn to put things behind you, and you have to live in the present. You can't get ahead of yourself. You can't worry about behind. You only have control of what you're doing. He's one of the best at that. He also doesn't believe that golf defines him, which you didn't talk about before, but he's got it in perspective. So when they hear the interviews, he's into his family, his religion, who he is as a person, and what he shoots on the golf course doesn't define who Scottie Scheffler is. It's just part of his life. Okay, the other thing is he prepares as much as he can. He knows he's prepared as much as he can. He's ready to play, and then he just goes out and he allows himself to enjoy being uncomfortable and enjoy competing. You have to like to be uncomfortable. That's another thing that we need to talk about at some point in time. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a big thing in golf and sports in general. Because you're not going to go out there every time and just go to your quiet place and everything's beautiful and the butterflies are flying. And I mean, I'd like that to happen. It never happened to me too much. So what happens when you're uncomfortable? Because that's going to be most of the time you're playing. You're somewhat uncomfortable, either the score you're going to shoot or you're standing in front of people. So that's always going to happen. So how do you deal with it? He deals with it fantastic because it doesn't define him. Even though he puts as much time into it as he does, it doesn't define who he is. So let's review the physical side, the golf swing side of what Scottie works on. One, he is religious with his grip. He'll stand there on every shot and you'll watch him, and especially if you see him on the range, he's sitting there, he's making sure the club's right in his hands are on there relative to the face, exactly where he wants it before he sets up to the ball. And then he's very cognizant and very precise with how he sets up to the ball, where the ball is in his stance, and how he's aimed relative to his target. What he's found the most consistent aim before he ever makes a swing. So that's the first thing. Second thing, he has a real free arm swing. So he's not trying to tie his arms into his side. So he's got a lot of freedom. Now the body mechanics guys, the biomechanics people are talking about you want the club up high so you've got room to drop it down. That's the Jack Nicklaus. I mean, Jack knew something that a lot of us didn't know. It was the Sam Snead and a lot of those players. So you're seeing more and more players with a freer and freer arm swing and a bigger and bigger, higher hands. So that's one, free arm swing. Two, when he comes down into the ball, this foot slides out of the way. That's the first move. How is that going to help you? Well, if you hit shots and this foot moves out of the way, this hip can't move up into the ball. So that's a really good practice thing for all of you to do, to make practice swings where that foot goes back. That'll help you catch the face up and give you room for your body. The other thing he does, once this foot slides out of the way and he's going through the ball, then this foot turns this way. So he goes slide, turn onto his heel. So going onto that left heel makes this hip moves out of the way enough that as you go through the ball, your left hip isn't in the way. So you can just stand there and hit some shots where you go back to your left heel as the club goes through the ball. Most of you, when you swing, you go out to your left toe. Now, I'm not saying you don't get to the ball of your foot, but this is a little bit of an exaggeration. So that foot action that he has, slide and then twist, makes his hips do what they need to do to time what the club's doing. So those things in his swing can really help your swing. Thanks for watching this video on Scottie Scheffler and why he's dominating golf, and with the US Open coming up, what he does that can really help your game. Be sure you go to Malaska Golf over the entire summer. We've got a lot of things that we're doing. Get involved in the Summer of Great Golf, which there's a lot of giveaways, a lot of things that are really going to help your game. We look forward to the US Open this week, and I look forward to you watching Scottie and now understanding what he does, the things that you can do that can really help your game.